Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. Welcome back to Heavy Hammer Bushcraft. Heavy. Um, just out here in the woods again today a little bit. Kind of checking on things, making sure things are going all right out here. Had some issues with some stray dogs and whatnot lately, but everything seems to be in order. I wanted to have a little talk about resources near your campsite while you're out in the bush. Obviously, everybody knows water, utmost importance. Got to have water. But I'm thinking more like overnighter, something where you bring your water with you. You don't have to obviously find a fresh water source and find where you can forage food and everything every single time. We're talking like overnighters. Okay, still you're going to build a little bit of a shelter if you don't have a tent, which I personally don't like to bring a tent. I'd much rather build a shelter, maybe with a tarp, maybe a debris hut, something like that. Usually a tarp shelter, just because they do keep you a little bit better off in case of rain and whatnot. But my little campsite here that I've got picked out, you guys can see there's not a whole lot around here. I mean, I got some dead timber here, I got a little bit over here, I got some down in here, but not a whole lot. And again, this is an overnighter spot. This is not a spot where I'm going to go and spend a week or a month or even several days. I might spend one night out here, go back in. That's it. One night, overnight trip. I've got it cleared out pretty well. I've got some dead leaves and stuff right now. It's fall, hard to stop that. But, I've got a little fire pit spot picked out. I've got some, down timbers and stuff I can use for firewood. But what about resources like ridge poles and, materials for shelters if you need those? Well, to be honest with you, it's not really that hard in a lot of cases. You just have to look around the woods and find what you need. In this case, there are some places here where there are bunches of small little trees growing together. And what you have to realize is that if you got a big cluster of small little trees, if you got 4, 5, 6 trees growing in a cluster, a foot and a half, 2 foot wide, not all of those trees are going to survive and grow to maturity. Harvesting a couple of the smaller ones, it's not going to hurt anything. In fact, it's going to help the remaining ones grow to their full potential. So it's not necessarily a bad thing sometimes to harvest some living timber. Obviously, you have to be careful about where you're doing this. If you're in an area where you can't harvest timber, don't, by any means, harvest timber. This is my own property. I'm not worried about here. I can pick and choose what I want to harvest. But just remember that you don't have to have every single resource every single time you go out. It's a great idea if you're going to spend more than a day, more than 2 days. You spend 3, 4, 5 days, a week, a month, 2 weeks, whatever. You want resources near you. You want water. You want places to forage food. You want good shelter. Things like that. For an overnight trip, don't get so hung up on it. Find you a good level spot that you can clear out and make a nice little campsite out of. Build you a nice little fire pit. Pay attention to your surroundings. Harvest you a ridgepole if you need to. Bring one with you. Once you've harvested one ridgepole, you don't need to keep harvesting additional ridgepoles. Bring that one with you. It's there. It exists. You can reuse it. So don't get hung up on well, I don't have everything I need in this exact location to do everything that I need to do. Yeah, you probably do. As long as you're out of the weather, out of the elements, you've got some sort of shelter, you've brought your water and food with you, overnight trip, easy peasy. You don't got to get hung up on all that stuff. It's really, really tempting to. It's really, really easy to get hung up on that stuff because, if you are used to going out and spending multiple days, having multiple resources nearby is definitely a benefit. But if you're only going for an overnighter, tote your water and food with you. Find something that's got reasonable resources, enough where you can get a shelter together, get a small fire pit together. Watch out for your widowmakers and whatnot. Watch out for your wigglers on the ground. Pay attention for that stuff. You don't want snakes and stuff like that crawling into your shelter. You don't want big dead limbs falling on your head. Those are the 2 key ingredients for an overnight success. None of that stuff. You don't want it. Also pay attention if you're on a hill, any kind of incline, pay attention for where there may be potential rocks falling down, anything like that. But as far as resources go for an overnight trip, you're pretty much going to carry most everything you need. I mean, you're going to bring enough water probably for one day. I mean, a gallon of water should last you fine. You're not going to get up in the morning after a 1 day's overnight, take a shower, fully bathe, and everything else. You're going to want some water for your coffee in the morning, some water for your dinner at night, some water to drink throughout the time you're there while you're doing things. And nobody's going to get up first thing in the morning and immediately leave again. So you're going to want some water for the next day. Bring a gallon of water with you. It should be pretty sufficient for the most part for an overnight trip. And like I said, ridgepoles, if you need one, if you're building a tarp shelter, find you a stand where there's a bunch of small trees. I don't really have one right here within camera shot I can show you, but find one. Harvest a small tree. Inch in diameter, inch and a half in diameter. You need, 6, 8, 10 feet, whatever. Easy peasy. You don't got to get carried away with finding, exactly what you need laying on the ground. I probably could find a ridgepole out here laying on the ground. In fact, I think there's one right over there I could harvest. So if you can find one on the ground, great. If you're somewhere where you can't harvest timber, don't. If you can harvest timber, like on your own property or something, just going for an overnight, try out some things, refresh your skills, harvest a small tree, especially from a stand like that. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll help the other trees grow. It's part of conservation. It's hard to get that into people's heads sometimes, but it is part of the nature of the beast sometimes. As bushcrafters and as woodsmen, conservation should be something that's at the forefront of your mind as often as possible. And conserving what is around you sometimes involves, well, with animals, they call it culling the herd. So you need to sometimes trim back some things so that other things can flourish. It's not the end of the world. Again, if you're not allowed to harvest timber there, don't harvest timber. Yeah, I guess pretty much what I got, but I'm gonna maybe work on a little bit of a shelter here today. I haven't really started setting much of one up, but I'm not spending tonight out here. It's too cold for my taste tonight. It's supposed to be 31, I think, tonight, so I've got a warm bed a mile that way. I'm gonna stay there tonight. But I wanted to touch on that because people do get a little carried away with it sometimes. And you see all these, overnight solo in the woods videos. I'm not naming any names or calling out anybody or throwing anybody under the bus, because not all of them do it and not all of them do it all the time. But you see them all the time, and they're always concerned with having every resource they could possibly need right there in front of them, even just for an overnight trip. And you don't need to get hung up on that. So now that I've rambled on for 7 minutes or so, I feel like I have said everything I need to say. Did make a little upgrade to the velvet cut. Made a little belt loop for it so I can carry it. Kind of a handy little thing to make, really easy. I have a few more of them made. I think I've made one for several of my other axes as well, but yeah, definitely nice. I like it. Hangs nice. Keeps everything in easy access. Really easy to file back where it needs to be. That's all I got for today, guys. That's it. Still trying to get out here. I think I've got one other video I've got to upload talking about my flint wallet, which I will probably do before I do this one. So if you're watching this now, then you've already seen that. If you're not watching that and you have watched this, then go watch that. Fair enough. Yeah, comment, subscribe, like, thumbs up. Enjoy yourselves in the bush, and we'll see you next time.